Making these two PvP builds has been a bit of a wild ride. It started out as one Titan build based around keeping enemies blinded, when I realized I can accomplish the same thing through two different builds and that they both work really well at keeping enemies alive. So to start off, I'll go over what is the same between them, then discuss how they diverge later on. To kick things off is the Truth Teller grenade launcher, with the important perk to have on here, blinding grenades. Initially, I thought blinding grenades were rubbish because it makes all the stats like blast radius absolutely horrible, but lately I've been learning how to utilize them more effectively. Blinding grenades do different levels of blinding to opponents depending on how close they are to the center of the explosion. A quick and easy way to know just how blind your enemy is to watch the damage numbers. Now, there is a weird phenomena I've noticed where if you get a grenade close but don't do any damage, it'll still apply a slight blindness, but they will still see you. Now, if someone has a blinding effect on them, they'll have a purple haze effect above their heads. Now, for primary weapons, I had a lot of difficulties finding a good one that paired well with the Truth Teller and the rest of the build. What I wanted to use was my Whispering Slab with Sympathetic Arsenal. That way I'd be able to launch that blinding grenade, clean up with the bow, then as soon as the arrow gets knocked after securing the kill, it also reloads the grenade launcher. But somehow I no longer have that bow. I'm not certain if I accidentally deleted it, or if it got deleted during an update. But I found the Time Worn Spire, or False Promises with Sympathetic Arsenal, also works pretty well. For the heavy weapon, I use the Queenbreaker. It's an exotic linear fusion rifle that blinds what it doesn't kill and has customizable perks. Something nice that the gun doesn't tell you is that it gets 5 shots from ammo bricks, which is more than any other linear fusion rifle in the Crucible. I like to switch the scopes around depending on what map it is. The long zoom scopes do more damage but take longer to charge, and it'll kill almost every Guardian in one shot to the body. The shorter zoom scopes do less damage and charge faster, which is where the blinding effect comes in handy. Currently, as of recording this, the blinding part of the gun is bugged and only blinds a quarter of the time. I've already submitted a video to Bungie devs and they said they'd take a look at it. Hopefully they can get it fixed before the linear fusion buff next season, but like many weapon bugs, it'll probably be a few weeks after the season releases. The armor mods I used are nothing fancy. I leaned heavily into dexterity and reloading weapon perks. I didn't use any of the combat style mods because I didn't have a lot of space left on the armor pieces. The first build uses the Void Bubble Super with suppressor grenades. The grenades will suppress abilities like supers, dodging, and rifts. It's one of my favorite Titan grenades because it can shut down supers before they wipe your team out. Now, if you're not careful, you can suppress yourself out of your own bubble, which I have done more times than I care to admit. Anywho, I put on the Helm of Saint 14, which blinds enemies that go into your bubble and gives allies an overshield when they leave the bubble. If you've never experienced an enemy's Saint 14 bubble, the entire screen is white for as long as you're in there. If you want to use this exotic to its maximum potential, use it late at night in your region. There's a high likelihood that your opponents are playing in a dark room, and often going blind both in-game and out-of-game by the sudden bright light isn't worth it, and they'll leave you alone. The second part of the helmet's perk is that it blinds nearby enemies when guarding with Sentinel Shield. It's not worth it, don't bother. It emits a blinding pulse around you only when you press the guard button, but the distance is small and it only blinds them for 1 second. Originally, I was trying this out with the Code of the Commander's Banner Shield to blind enemies while allies shot through it. The blinding, though, only reaches as far as the banner shield itself, so anything that gets blinded will already be taking damage from the shield. I think if they increase the distance of the blinding effect, the helmet would see a lot more use with Void Titan builds, especially in high-level content. The next iteration of the build takes advantage of the Arc subclass's flashbang grenades. These work similar to the blinding grenades on Truth Teller, except if they do damage, the enemies are fully blinded, and all they'll hear is a loud ringing noise. Then I'm running Code of the Earthshaker to capitalize on flashbang grenades. First is Aftershocks, where doing damage with shoulder charge recharges the grenade. Second is Magnitude for the second grenade charge, and grenade effects last longer. This does count for the flashbangs. It can honestly get really funny to watch people bumble around after being hit by them. The exotic armor is the Mask of the Quiet One. I quite literally have not used this exotic in years, but I found it worked beautifully with this build. It grants ability energy when you get damaged, which is great for keeping the flashbang grenade charged up. I only have 40 points into discipline, and yet I still had grenades available for almost every skirmish. The second half of the helmet is a bit weird and can use an update now that the TTK is super low. When critically wounded, gain maximum health on a kill. This very specifically is talking about everything to the left of here. Everything to the right is your shields, and everything to the left is your health. So getting kills when below maximum health will instantly restore it back to this point here. Now the ironic part about this is that I've been trying for months to create a build in Crucible that focuses around helping out allies. I tried using Lumina, but just kept firing noble rounds at enemies. I tried sunspots with Phoenix Cradle, but people instinctively avoid the fiery spots on the ground. I even tried Starfire Protocol with Attunement of Grace, but Stasis took a dump all over that. Then, I try to be as incredibly toxic as possible and keep enemies from seeing anything, and it actually ends up being the best support build I've ever put together. Oftentimes I wouldn't get very many kills, but I'd have a ton of assists. I think part of this is that people just don't use blinding grenades on grenade launchers, and it takes a lot of them by surprise. Like, other than misjudging an angle and accidentally blinding myself with my own grenade, I have never been hit by one in Crucible. So what I would try to do is get a good angle and flank enemies to blind them. Then, often what would happen is they would try and get away from me and run straight into my allies who would clean them up quickly. And the overshield from Saint 14's bubble along with the 20% damage boost from it turned quite a few losing games into wins. So remember, your enemies can't hit what they can't see, so keep your allies safe and lead them to victory.